Don, you know we love recording intros. Am I right?
Intros, I'd do a whole episode just of intros.
Well, especially when you're doing an intro to Tony Troy.
Dude, that was such a delight. I hadn't known his story really before this evening. You know, when you had brought up bringing him on, and what an interesting story. Like, I was like, yeah, cool, but I had no idea how interesting it would be.
Yeah, that was a story of a lifetime, and he needs to get his story out, and I'm glad we could help him do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this episode with our new friend, Tony Troy. We're back, Don.
Welcome back, Sam.
Yeah, so I went to a store the other day, and the person who was helping me noticed my Dali tattoo.
Okay.
And we went back and forth, and it turns out she lives with a very established artist, someone that I really wanted to meet, and I want you to meet.
Awesome.
So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Tony Troy.
Hold the applause.
Oh, sorry, guys, be quiet out there.
Established artist?
Come on. I'm just winging it, man. I'm saying words, and hopefully they hit.
Now, yeah, it is interesting now at this particular junction in time to talk about exactly how I became an artist. Long time ago, I was good at doodling at school, and then eventually I got a degree in science, and it was interesting, but it wasn't my thing. But I always wanted to be an artist. But my father would always say, "So how's the physics going, Tony?" I said, "It's going all right, Dad. Maybe I should." No talk of art, please. So what I did, I applied to art college by phone. And they said, come in on Thursday. I didn't want my father to find out, so I needed to phone.
Yeah.
And they said, come in on Thursday. I said, that's only 2 days away. And so, well, it's that or nothing. So I did a quick sketch. And I go along. It was 11 o'clock. I remember because the bells were chiming 11 o'clock, or beginning to chime as I walked through the door. Mm-hmm. And the fellow looked at me. He says, where's your portfolio, boy? I said, my what? He says, portfolio. Work. You know, people come in here with years and years of work. Oils, charcoals, pastels, watercolors. You have nothing. I says, oh no, I got it. And I actually had this drawing in my top pocket. So I took it out. I said, here, what was that word you used? He says, portfolio, boy, and you're an imbecile, and that's a grubby sheet of paper you've just pulled from your top pocket. And he opened the door. He says, get the hell out.
Whoa.
So he literally pushed me out of the door. And it was interesting because when I went in, the bells were chiming 11 o'clock because I'm into time. Mm-hmm. And when he pushed me out, they were still chiming 11 o'clock. So that is a Guinness Book of Records for being at art college.
So wait, you originally were studying? You actually studied to be a scientist, though?
Yeah, I was actually doing physics at it was London College, London University, King's College.
But you had no interest in that.
No, it was. I had all the degrees necessary to do it, all the exams, should I say. But it just wasn't me, but it was the thing. I didn't know about being an artist.
Did you, from like the early ages, were you already considering being an artist, or was this as you were going through the process of becoming a scientist or whatever you were going to be, you just decided this isn't it, I got to try something else, or you knew you wanted to be an artist all along?
It was interesting. Like most people say, I started doodling, or my child, he doodles, he does cartoons. Yeah. I just remember the first time I picked up a pencil, I was 7. And the Queen of England she'd just been crowned. So I was obsessed with drawing the crown, the royal crown, and I did about 20 or 30 royal crowns. And that was the age of 7. And that was my first attempt at drawing. So, but it didn't really catch on. Later on in school, I did a little bit of drawing, and I was pretty good at art. But then, as I say, after I got a degree, couldn't get on into that world either. So I just started working in office jobs,
Oh.
and I kept getting fired because I really wasn't that interested. But I had a degree, and it was all accountancy and all that. And I remember, what am I talking about? I remember I was fired for about the 5th time.
5 times.
So on my way to the Labour Exchange, I'm in a pinstripe suit, and I come across a group of street artists. This is in London. And there's a whole load of tourists waiting to get their portraits, probably around about 15 street artists all doing portraits. One of them was packing up, and so I got talking to him, and I casually mentioned how I'd always wanted to be an artist, but never mind, I was on my way to Labour Exchange to get another job. And we talked for about 20 minutes, and he says, I'd like to talk longer, mate, but as you can see, I'm packing up. I've got a flight to catch back to South Africa. Great talking to you. I said, oh, okay. And then he picks up a suitcase and walks away. I said, hey, what about your gear? 2 stools, easels, pencils, and paper. He's probably about 20 yards away. And he turns back, he says, too heavy to take on the plane, mate. Tell you what, you want to be an artist, it's yours. And he walks away. I says, what? And none of the other artists had seen him go. So I sit down on this stool, and now 2 stools, an easel, pencils, and paper in front of me. And I pick up a couple of pencils thinking, well, I can draw, but it's not exactly the kind of thing I should be doing, working on the streets. I was about to get up and leave when a voice says, do you draw black people? And I look up to see this cheerful black lady. And I just remember pausing, and I says, well, let's just say I haven't drawn too many white people. Sit down. If you don't like it, you don't pay for it. And that was my first portrait.
Oh.
And that's how I became a street artist. And then I got better and better. I wasn't great at the beginning, but you get used to the thing. When you're drawing one after the other, you become better and better, and ended up as one of the top dogs. Then one of the things about working on the streets too, you get to see a lot of the street characters, and you get to observe what's going on, and you come across a lot of stories. Let me see. One simple story would have been one of the crazy guys on the streets. He would always clean lampposts and rubbish bins, and he would always mumble. You could never understand what he said, and all the other artists said, don't talk to him. He's just an idiot. Talks rubbish. Nobody can understand a word he's saying. So one day he comes over to me, and he's mumbling. So I give a coin, look for a coin, give him a coin. And then he starts mumbling, and I thought, I'm going to listen. And translated, he said, I knocked on both sides of the door this morning, but it was locked. And then he goes on his way. I thought, that's clever. Now how can you knock on both sides of a locked door? Then I surmised that maybe, I started to think about, maybe it's a door between, it's not a door as we know it, but maybe a door between this world and the next. Mm-hmm. It was just an idea I had. And another day he came along, and he was now getting used to coming to me. And the second time he said, in the beginning there was woman, then woman created God, and then God created man. Then man created the red light district to appreciate woman. And he goes on his way, and the artist, why do you talk to him? He's an idiot. He's brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. But what was interesting is, on the strength of that, he was always cleaning lampposts and rubbish bins, and he was always moving like a dancer. And he was always cheerful. And this is where we come to... we were talking earlier about how I knew one of the ballet dancers in town here. Mm-hmm. But he was very much like a dancing fool. And that's what everybody called him, a fool. And I thought, that's a good title for a character in a show, and that's where I came up with an idea for a musical based on this character who could knock on both sides of a door when it's locked. And so that was one of the crazy guys on the streets. I could go on to, but I'm gonna better let you ask a few questions.
So you're drawing in the park. I say your physics career is now behind you. What were your first gigs like as an artist?
As I say, I was getting good all the time, better and better and better. Most of the portraits usually about 40 minutes to an hour, and and then, as I say, I would get better and better, and I was started to get. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I was just into the music and the art and the stories that were going on around me all the time. So, but my drawings were always getting better and better, and you can talk all about the different people. There's so many people. I think I probably worked out that I had done about 30,000 portraits on the streets of London, Paris, and Rome.
How long were you at it for?
I think 17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
Did your dad find out eventually, or?
He had gone his way somewhere else, but my sister came along once, and I remember, and she said, "Mummy and Daddy, I'm most displeased that you're working on the streets amongst ruffians and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You really should give it up and go back to doing accountancy." I said, "Well, I don't think so." And then we talked for a little while, and then she said, "Well, I would talk longer, but I'm having dinner with friends in the West End in a very good restaurant. I would invite you, but you understand."
Wow.
Because I was looking like an artist, all scruffy, and she was going off with her wealthy friends. But what she didn't know, and this is that evening, I was actually, well, I'll just set it up. A couple of months earlier, this girl came by on a bicycle, and she stopped in front of me. I said, "Would you like a portrait?" She said, "No, but I would like a cup of coffee." I thought, "Oh, okay." So we go for coffee, and she finds out that I'm living in a squat with no hot water.
Oh.
And then she says, "Look, Mummy and Daddy are away for the weekend. Why don't you come back to my place and you can use the bath there?" I thought, that'd be good. So the evening comes, I pack up, and she's got her bike, and so we start walking down Whitehall, not catching a bus or a tube or anything. And then we walk past the Houses of Parliament, and I'm thinking, yes, we're going towards Chelsea, the richest part of town where all the wealthy people live. And I walk on the streets to avoid all the crowds taking photographs of Big Ben and the Palace of Westminster. And then I hear, "Tony," and I turn around, and she's actually walking through the gates of the palace. And the police officers are on the gate saluting her. "Evening, madam." "Evening, officers." "Evening, madam." "Evening, madam." And she says, "He's with me." Tony, cut this way." And I thought, what? So I start making my way through the crowds with my easel and my portfolio. And the police officers started, "Evening, sir." "Evening, sir." "Evening, officers." "Evening, sir." "Evening, officers." What she didn't know was I was constantly being arrested as a street artist and taken down to Bow Street Police Station and treated as a common criminal. Now,
Was it illegal to just set up shop on the street like that?
It was called obstruction of the highway, public highway. And it was just a minor thing, and you get fined £5, but it was something you had to do. So we get into the courtyard, and we're standing in front of Big Ben in the Palace of Westminster. And I says, "Who are you?" She's still wheeling her bicycle, and she laughs. And turns out her father was a sergeant at arms, and he's the head of security, and they lived in the wing beneath Big Ben, and that's where I had my hot bath. But coming back to it, when my sister said, I would invite you, but you understand. I said, no, that's fine. She didn't know it, but that evening I was having dinner with Lord Limerick in the Palace. And to this day, I never told her, you know, you just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So,
What do you mean? I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean by a squat. You were living in a squat?
It's where there's no hot water, and it was an abandoned building. And
Whoa.
What's interesting, a lot of my artwork, there was a lot of sheetrock around the place, and I would start to draw some of the homeless people on the sheetrock, and I took that idea just recently, you know, to doing a lot of things on on sheetrock instead of canvas. Canvas is about 100, you know, because the sheetrocks are 8x4. Great size for doing a really good illustration. As opposed to a canvas, 8x4 is, you know, probably around about $150, $200 about pounds.
Yeah.
But sheetrock is $17. You know, so I'm talking in terms of American money, but in English money, and it became, that's where some of my best work was done, in that squat on sheetrock.
Now, what's your preferred medium?
It's actually a pastel.
Pastel?
Yeah, and you know, dated the girl from the Palace, and eventually, you know, probably for about a year, and then things fell through, and but I had this ambition to paint the aristocracy, because now I thought maybe the girl from the Palace might be my way through to the aristocracy. But she refused to promote me to her friends because it wasn't part of the deal. You know, when her father's a sergeant at arms, you weren't supposed to try and make money out of that. And yeah, it was fair enough. So when I left, eventually coming back to, you were asking about my art, the portraits now, I was getting pretty good. And one of the artists mentioned, it's a shame, man, because you're really good now. It's a shame because submissions for the Royal Society of Portrait Artists of Great Britain are tomorrow morning. You know, you should have done something a couple of months back, and you could have got in. So one of the other artists, he was a fan of mine. We shared the squat together. Little Scottish fella. Excuse me, laddie. Ignore them. What they're saying. I've seen one of your 20-minute portraits. Just do a 20-minute portrait, and I've got a cheap frame you can put it in. So I did. I paid a girl passing by £5 to sit for me. Did a quick sketch. A Scotsman put it into a frame, and I took it along to the submissions the following day to the Royal Society of Portrait Painters. It was on the Mall, and it was there that all the famous artists as well as regular artists were bringing in their portraits that they'd spent time, quite a lot of time. And there was a lady on the bench and at a table, and she was talking to the first one. Sir Charles, how much will you be charging this year? I think maybe a little bit more than last year, maybe £30,000. Yeah, £30,000. Oil, of course. Yes, of course, yes. And it was the same with the second, you know, it was 15,000, and another one was 10,000. Then she comes to me with my little frame and my 20-minute sketch. And she said, how much will you be charging if you get in? You know, looking at the drawing. I said, and on the streets I was charging £10. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I'm going to really go for it. So I says, £30. Yeah. So she says, oh, £30, okay. And the guy, there was another guy with white gloves carefully taking all these things away. And he sort of picks up mine with his white gloves and looks in disgust. And I actually got in.
Hey.
You know, as a Scotsman said, aye, you're a good laddie. Because what you do what very few artists do. You find the soul. And so I go to the opening a couple of months later, and then I hear, Mr. Troy, about this portrait. I said, too expensive, eh? He says, no, Royal Society and all that, we had to up the price to £1,000. And you have about 15 portraits at £1,000 each. And that was it. That was suddenly I was back doing the Royal Society and doing all these grand portraits. But what was interesting, the portraits weren't as good as the ones I did on the street, because on the street you were relaxed. And that was the name of the game. And when you were working for the aristocracy, I remember the very, very first one I did. I spent about 25 minutes, and he said, "Would you care for some champagne before we begin?" I said, "No, but maybe a cup of coffee." He says, "Oh, who drinks coffee before a portrait?" So I did the portrait in about, I remember it was about 40 minutes. And then when I finished, he says, I said, "It's finished." He says, "That is the preliminary sketch, I presume?" I said, "No, it's the finished one." I didn't know there were preliminary sketches. They expected about 4 or 5 or something. He says, "Oh, by golly, it looks like me, but £1,000 for 20 minutes work, you know." And so it was just interesting, the different people that you do in the when you're drawing the aristocracy, and then you get back onto the streets. But because it's laid back and relaxed and fun, and you're drawing so many people, the portraits are so much better, you know, and big difference. I just remember thinking, even now when I'm drawing important people, you just don't relax.
Do you find that you were able to connect more with, like, say, the people who were around the street than with the aristocracy? Like, where they're, like, more story sharing?
Yeah. And there's so many stories. Even, you know, with the... I talk about the soul, and it became an obsession to, you know, always try and find the soul. And so it really was not just drawing portraits, but about trying to find the soul and presenting the soul on paper and pencil, trying to reveal the soul. One perfect example was I drew 2 sisters one day. One was extremely beautiful, the other one was very plain, and everybody homed in on the beautiful girl. And she sat first, and all the street boys were around, and she was all giggling. "Does it look like me?" Yeah, darling, it looks great. Now nobody can capture your beauty, darling. And she just kept moving, and when I finished the portrait, probably about 25, 30 minutes later, by now everybody has ignored the plain sister just sitting there, because she doesn't have anything like the beauty of the girl that was sitting. And she looked at it and says, "Oh, you made me look like a Barbie doll. I look empty." Says, "It's what I saw." And and then she huffs and puffs and goes off for coffee with these street boys that she didn't even know. And the plain sister sat, and she apologized for her sister's behavior. And when she sat, she looked right at me, and I thought, whoa, you know, and you could just see the difference. She was shining. You know, you think, wow. And it's hard to describe, but it just came out an incredible portrait.
Yeah.
And when the girl came back, the beautiful sister came back, she said, "Why is hers so good?" You know. And it was just interesting, because at the end of the story, you would say, and those 2 sisters walked away, and one holding a portrait, one was beautiful, the other one was not so beautiful, you know, and that was it. And then things like that, it is how to capture the soul. One other thing was when I had to draw an Arab. He came along down the line. I remember it was a Sunday, and he was arrogant and well dressed. And he went to the first artist. "You draw my portrait. Must be good. If no good, I no pay. How much?"
Whoa.
And the artist said, "Get lost." And he goes to the second one, same routine. "You pay. How much you? No, £10, £5. Get lost, down the line." Now, I needed the money bad. I had £2 in my pocket, and I needed the money bad for breakfast. So after turning about 5 artists away, or walking away from 5 artists, he comes to me. I said, "Okay, £5. He says, "Oh, it must be good, or I no pay." All right. So he sits down. £4.
Wow.
I says, no, we've come down from 10 down to 4. He says, £4 or I walk away. And I needed the money. I needed breakfast. All right, £4. So I says, all right, £3, my final offer. And so I had to do it because I needed the money. And what was interesting is I started to draw him, and I really hated the guy. In fact, it's one of the songs in my show, how I hate this stupid face. The face before me doesn't appreciate the hard times that I'm going through. And then I started to give him the benefit of the doubt. He claimed to be a student, and he only had a few pounds in his pocket. I thought, well, maybe he's telling the truth. He's arrogant, but so am I. He's a son of a bitch, so am I, And you start to think, maybe I'm drawing me. Just the idea that, we're all the same. And suddenly he starts to pick up that I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. And he totally relaxes. And there's a communication going on, and which wasn't there before. And you begin to overcome this hate thing, and you give him the benefit of the doubt, and there's an appreciation for what he is and who he is. And even though you don't understand why he is what he is, you think, well, that's the way of the world. And the other artists come up. One artist said, "Wait a minute, that's a great portrait, Tell him to go to hell." I said, "No, go away, And when it was done, he gave me £3, and he says, "I only have £2 to get home now, And all the other artists chastised me because it turned out to be a great portrait. It's one of the best portraits I ever did on the street. How, you overcome hate and replace it with something else. So he goes away, and all the other artists said, "You're an idiot, you're a fool, blah, blah, blah." He comes back later on in the day with an envelope. That portrait was a gift for my father on his birthday. I tell him, "I ashamed what you pay, what I pay you." And so he told me to give this to you. That's £100.
Wow.
So so you've got these different stories about the different subjects that you're drawing, but in all cases you're trying to find the soul. And when it comes to that, eventually I ran out of time with the Royal Society. I found it wasn't my thing, and I was doing the better portraits on the streets. And then we probably move on to why I write musicals.
Well, yeah. So you're 17, or is this the point where you're 17 years in? And
yeah, I'm about 17 years in, and I'm thinking, well, where do we go from here? But I have to say that just one thing before we go into the musicals. Just to talk about what comes your way. Once the girl from the Palace had gone her way, there to my living, sleeping beneath Big Ben every weekend, the largest timepiece in the world. And then she goes on her way because her father had retired, so that was it. And then I thought, well, how do you beat a palace, you know? A couple of girls come by this evening, and all the artists are working, and there's about 4 or 5 girls from Denmark all sitting, and there's one that she can't afford it. I said, look, maybe I'll destroy you for nothing. You know, and I might get some work out of it, who knows. I drew her portrait for free. I didn't get any work out of it, and all the Danish girls and her go on their way. This other artist comes over, here, Tyne, how much did you do that portrait for? I said, nothing. She didn't have any money. Nothing. You could have got 10 quid, but no, you have to do it for nothing. The girl came by about 4 months later. It's now getting into November. Mm-hmm. And she's with her parents. They've come from Denmark, you know, back. And the father, we very much like the portrait you did of my daughter. We'd like you to come to Denmark and paint the rest of the family. So they gave me a ticket, and it was for Christmas, and I stayed there for 4 months. Being in Denmark was an incredible place. It was like Hans Christian Andersen. Talk about magical.
You were living in their house?
I was living in their house. What was interesting is it was one of the rich men of Denmark, so they put me in the east wing of the house, just pure pine. You could smell the pine. Yeah. And each evening we had dinner at 7 o'clock, so I would stand at the top of the stairs looking down at this table. It was a long table with wine all the way down and candles all the way down, and about he had 4 beautiful. It's like a Hans Christian Andersen story. He had 4 beautiful daughters and 3 strapping sons, you know, and a few other people, and it was always incredible, just incredible to look at, to see all this wine and candles and beautiful people. And I always recall the guy on the street saying, 10 quid? You could have done that for nothing, but no, you got to do it for nothing, you know. So, and I thought there was no price on that portrait. I was there for 4 months. But then you're starting to roll to a bit of a, you know, you think, where do I go to from here? Mm-hmm. Then one day, one of the things when I was at university, I found that I could write music. You know, I got into the music society, not the music society, the drama society by mistake. Mm-hmm. Everything's always by mistake.
This is why you were studying science.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I found I could write music, and so I wrote a song, and I couldn't get anyone to sing it. And so I thought, well, I'll try learning to sing myself. So I remember learning to sing this on Thursday. And I thought, it sounds okay, you know, because I play piano. And I set it to a pitch, and I was looking like Bob Dylan. So I go in on Friday, record it just on a tape, and then go into EMI Music Publishing on Monday. And there's a fellow in a long, just leather jacket and high heel boots, you know, and he was about 5'7", trying to look 6 foot. All right, son, leave it with us, and you know, just put the tape down there. And all right, you can go. Go on, get out. Go on. Give us a few months. That afternoon, I get a telegram from EMI, and they said, "Come in immediately." So I thought, I must have given them an empty tape. There's no way. So I go in, make another tape, go in on the Tuesday morning. I said to there's somebody else there. I said, my name's Tony Troy. I think I gave you an empty tape. Oh, Tony Troy. Oh, hang on a moment. There's a meeting going on now. So she goes down the corridor, and I hear my song. It is me singing my song, you know. And suddenly all these people come out. There's about 6 of them, and there's a woman leading them. And, love the song. Oh, beautiful. Oh, I think the girls are going to love him. Oh, yes. Incredible, darling, incredible. So I say to this guy in the leather gear, I says, what's going on? He says, they want to sign you up as a singer-songwriter. I says, but I only learn to sing on Thursday. I don't sing. And I signed a contract the next day on the Tuesday, on the Wednesday, I think it was.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I thought, this is crazy. What was interesting was the head of EMI Records. He heard it. He wanted to sign me up, but he was a little bit woofy. And I said, nah. He wanted to sign at 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, no, not my deal. Because the head of EMI Music Publishing was a woman. Now, she had been fine, but she was straight. She was really nice. But the head of EMI Records was not the best. So he wanted to give it to somebody else, but the head of EMI Music Publishing said no. He does it or nobody does it. So myself and 3 other street artists got some money together doing portraits, and we went to Manchester and recorded the studio, the song there, and then we had made 500 copies, and EMI Records said, well, you'll never get it played. So blow that. So being street artists, we just go down the BBC and we walked in the way Elvis, those days.
Yeah.
You just walk in. And we were going around the corridors of Power, and Jimmy Savile, that's him. Oh, he's on the air now, And then when you see he's not talking, I just walked in. I says, hey, I wonder if you can play this. He said, who are you? I says, I'm a street artist. Oh yeah, I've seen you guys, And he listens. I like this. I'll play it tomorrow. And it's the same with 2 of the others. Yeah, I like this. I'll play it tomorrow. So it's played non-stop, but for 6 weeks.
Wow.
And so
what kind of what genre of music?
It's probably just a ballad, but it was just surprising because it was just me on the piano, but it turned out good. And apparently when it was played on the BBC, apparently the switchboard was jammed with people trying to buy the record, but we didn't have enough, we didn't have any mechanism to sell records.
Yeah.
We were just 4 street artists, but it was just the fun of knowing that you'd bypass the whole system, a little bit like the world of art. You'd bypass the whole system, and it's the same with the music, If the BBC actually phoned me up and complained. I said, that's great that you're complaining, It's what you call a turntable hit. But we actually used the show. Coming back to it in a roundabout manner, I wrote a show about the dancing fool, the one who knocked on both sides of a door when it's locked. And it became a story about the door between this world and the next world. And we use that song in the show. And it's one of the kids' favorite songs.
What was all right, so where were you living when you created this musical?
I was still in the squat then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That was interesting.
What was the plot of this musical? I know that it was. Is this the same musical that they played Off-Broadway?
It is, and it was about a dancing fool, and that's the one where Paul Morris played the dancing fool.
Oh.
How this dancing fool hears music coming from the stars, from heaven. And everybody thinks he's crazy. And when an old beggar woman, she wants to take her 2 umbrellas to heaven, so she can dance in heaven with her husband again, who's long since died. But when they're stolen, is how this fool goes and finds the 2 umbrellas. One ends up in North London, one ends up in South London. And it's how he, by following the music, he finds both these umbrellas, and when he returns them, he proves he's not so crazy. And once they all come to believe who's telling the truth, everybody begins to hear the music, and it lifts them all up into the sky. So that was the music, the basis of that musical, and we did it in New York.
And this is called the Flute Player Song?
The Flute Player Song, yeah. Okay. So it was a bit of a shame when we did it in New York. It was on a hot day, and there was no air conditioning, so they had this big fan blowing in the...
That's loud.
And it just totally ruined the show, you know. And But what was interesting is many years later, I went to another musical. Somebody said, well, they were annoyed that that my musical hadn't taken off. So they invited me over to see how there was this company trying to raise 15 million for a new musical, and she said, come and see how we do it. So I did it. It was a story about the Holocaust, and it was set in the synagogue, and the storyline was good, but the music was boring. And as we're leaving, we're going into the courtyard afterwards, and the actress that had invited me introduced me to some of her friends, and everybody's whispering like this, that the world has got to see this story about the Holocaust. Yes, the music, yes, that kind of thing.
Oh.
There's a bug, sorry.
Ah.
Yeah, that's what happens when you talk about the synagogue. Yeah, and she said, Tony, he wrote a musical, The Flute Player Song. That was the one that they'd all got me to see. Oh, the Flute Player Song, that was great. The music was fantastic. Suddenly everybody started, what is this Flute Player Song they're talking about? So I thought, yeah, let's try and get it on the road again. So, we did something recently in Asbury Park.
Recent? How recent?
About the middle of April. Yeah. Oh. It was a bit of a takeoff of the Flute Player Song. But I thought, I've got to, we couldn't get the money for a large show, so I thought I'll just cut the story down to a real story about where the Flute Player Song comes from. And it comes from real bits of magic. Now, coming back to the beginning of what, we were talking about here, when I started out on the streets, there was an old lady long time ago. This is the fun bit too. I was dragged by this girlfriend to see a psychic, and I says, nah, that's evil. No, she's really good. So she persuades me to go in. It's this little old lady, and as I go in, she says, shuffle the cards. And as I'm shuffling the cards, I see a piano standing behind you, and there's a guitar next to it, keep shuffling, and you're standing at the bus stop, and there's a girl that likes you. I thought, boy, this woman is good. I haven't done it. But the bottom line was, she said, you're going to be very famous one day, but it won't happen for some time. Remember the sometime bit. And that was the... so when I was on the streets, I kept thinking, well, where is this sometime bit? Where is this sometime bit? Where is this sometime bit? And then I thought, yeah, let's write for this Asbury Park, let's write this whole thing down about the palace. But now I'm going to go to another place. So here am I writing a story about how I became a street artist by mistake, ended up sleeping in a palace dominated by time, the largest timepiece in the world. Then I end up back on the streets again, and I think, well, where do I go from here? And then I remember recently when I had a shop, a guy came into my art shop, and he says, a bit of a hard-looking nut. He looks around at my artwork, it has this ethereal feeling, a bit of a spiritual feel to my artwork. And he says, it's strange, you know what, I don't tell this to no one, but he looks around at all the pictures, he says, it's got a real spiritual feel. Now, I don't tell this to no one, but I'm doing this in an English accent. Should be doing it in an American accent. I don't tell this to no one.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But I died in a knife fight a couple of months back, and and I found myself not dead, but on the other side. I said, what? He says, yeah, that's why I don't tell people. you know. And suddenly I was standing there, and there's a lot of other people like me. Everybody's looking miserable and just standing there as though we're waiting for something. And in the distance I see mountains, and suddenly this light appears in front of me and looks at me and then just disappears. And then I see my friend, you know, and I can see right into his soul, and he can see right into my soul. I thought, this is all weird, you know, this guy is telling me this. And then I wakes up in the ICU, and I didn't dare tell anybody that I'd been to the other side. And so coming back to it, now when it came to this story that we just did recently, I suddenly remembered my mother. I didn't remember, but I always put it aside. My mother, long time ago, I saw her diary lying open on a table, and I saw Tony, and I just glanced at it. I was curious. I don't like reading other people's work. And it said, heard Tony laughing I was a baby, laughing about 2 a.m, and went to check, opened the door, and he was dancing above his cot. And I turned on the light, and there was nothing there. He was asleep in the cot. And she thought she was dreaming, so she turns off the light, goes back, and then hears me laughing again. This time she opens the door slowly and looks in, and now I'm just dancing around the cot up in the air. And she said, "Tony, come down." And she turns on the light, and I'm sleeping. 3 times that night she saw me. So I questioned her about that the next day. Turns out she had she said, yeah, it's not the kind of thing you tell people. But she had died giving birth to a stillborn long before I came along, and found herself on the other side. And it was incredible what she saw, but it was a place where there was no time. She said that was the main thing. It was just unbelievable to be in this incredibly beautiful place where there was no time. But when I tried to tell people, they wouldn't believe it. And then I suddenly thought, you know what? When I was in the Palace of Westminster and sleeping beneath Big Ben, and you try to tell people, they wouldn't believe it. I thought, now we have a story. We have a story here, you know. And you think, well, how do we convey this? And I thought, well, you know what? And then suddenly, when I came up with the idea, we did the show recently, and it's amazing the number of people that know somebody who've been to the other side. And they all say the same
story, right?
There is no time. And there am I, being in the Palace of Westminster, sleeping beneath the largest timepiece on the planet. You know? Whoa! So I thought, yeah, let's go there.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it again. Hopefully, I'm trying to get some money together to do something this time in New York, not in Asbury Park, but a lot of people in Asbury Park. One guy, he came up after the show. He says, 50 years ago, I went to see a show in London. It was a ragtag bobtail type show, a little bit like what I saw tonight, you lot doing this. We had one day's rehearsal, one night's rehearsal. He says, but what I saw 50 years ago, I thought, this is going to be a big hit. It was Leonard Lloyd Webber's first show. And he said, what I saw tonight is exactly what I saw 50 years ago. This is going to be a big hit. So that's where I'm at now, you know, trying to find some money. I've got to go down to Georgia soon and maybe talk to a few people down there. There are a few pennies floating around.
So, Don, we've had quite a few artists on this show before. I've heard the phrase before, struggling artist, but I don't think that term has ever hit more true than the person we're interviewing now, someone who is a street artist, 17 years, has traveled here and there in the world. And I got to ask, man, it's been a minute since those first portraits you drew. What keeps you so motivated? Just keep on creating, keep trying to get your ideas out there.
No, that lady saying what's going to happen after the first psychic. You're going to go places. I go and see this Scottish guy, and I thought, let's check with another. And he says, what's going to happen to you, laddie? You're going to go right. You're going to be needing the best lawyers and the best accountants, because what's going to happen, you haven't a clue. It's going to be phenomenal, but it's not going to happen for some time. And he goes on about the same thing as this other lady. And so I didn't say anything. And then when I get up to leave, he says, you think I don't know what I'm talking about? Because you hadn't said anything. I said, no, it sounds interesting. He says, as soon as you walked through the door, I saw the London Palladium behind you, which is at the Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. So, and then it's just interesting. So that keeps you going. And then many other things similar. You know, the fact that a number of psychics said, but everything points to you suddenly got yourself a storyline where I'm in a palace one minute and my mother's on the other side in heaven in another minute. And you think, you've got a story. And you've got stories from the street. And knocking on both sides of the door when it's locked, the very first thing that character said, I knocked on both sides of the door when it's locked. That's my mother. And anybody that's been to the other side, she said the next day, she said, yeah, I was looking down at myself before I went off. And then she was dragged back down, but she was knocking on both sides of the door when it was locked. So, and then I found out that same character, the street character, had also died briefly. So and everybody thought he was a nutcase, so that's how he ended up on the street.
Yeah.
But that was the basis of the story, you know, knocking on both sides of the door when it's locked. So I think, let's go with it.
Yeah.
So there you go. And that's what keeps me going. And also the fact that, every time we do a musical, even the other day I went to see some fellow that had been involved with the show. He, you know, as soon as I walked in, you know, I was telling him, I'm thinking of getting the show going. He says, why that show was a miss? That should have gone to Broadway. I'm really pissed with you. That show was a great show. Brilliant music. I thought, okay. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get it going. Yeah. So we'll see. You know, that's the flute player.
Well,
song.
so now you're living in Ocean City, right?
Linwood.
Okay, Linwood. And are you maybe?
So what got you to the States in the first place?
Somebody gave me a ticket. They heard the music and read the storyline, and
Yeah.
so they gave me a ticket to come to America, and they paid for everything when I was here. And
Okay.
then, you know, I got a green card as an artist doing murals, and end of story, you know. And so I thought, I'm not going to go back until I've got a show to Broadway. So I've been here for 4,000 years.
And are you still hitting the streets and drawing portraits?
No, I ended up getting a lot of work down from Georgia. I'm right now doing a couple of very expensive portraits, which will help get me into town one way or another.
Yeah.
I'm going back down to Georgia probably in about 3 weeks, and then hopefully pick up. I've got one commission to deliver, and then 2 more commissions waiting. There might be a third or fourth, and that would be enough to get me back into an off-Broadway house. So we'll wait and see.
Wow.
You know, that's a story and a half.
Yeah.
I'm just so impressed that you're still at it, just like it's almost like day one, like you're still going for it. I think that's super inspiring.
Yeah. Well, it is, and but what's interesting is the characters you pick up on the way that want to be part of it. You know, suddenly you end up with these young people who are using technology that you didn't even know existed, and you think, whoa, that works really well. And then you suddenly find, instead of just trying to show your artwork on a stage, you can project the whole thing, and then you can put stars behind it, and suddenly you've got yourself a Broadway show.
Yeah.
Using very little. So
Yeah, I think it's a lot better now, because back then you had to go through, like with the music industry, you had to go through the guys at the top and the bullheaded guy you were talking about. Now, I mean, you can just put your stuff online, and if people like it, it'll, right?
Yeah, I think that part of it's better. You know, I think it's a lot more having to hustle for yourself. You know,
that's right.
You know, because you don't have necessarily those big companies, fighting for you.
They've all gone.
Yeah.
And they'll come along when people start crowding into that theatre, and there's lots looking interesting. So we'll wait and see.
I find interesting is like this is the history that's involved in your playwriting, and how much that comes from like a real place, and how
that is the secret of it, is making sure that everything is real. Yeah. So when you're doing a show about magic, one of the things you do is you say, you know what, this real magic people don't believe. So what you do, you tell it as a child's tale. And then you slowly introduce some of the real events. So they come away thinking, wow, and then they start talking about their own little bits of magic that have, that nobody believes. Real magic does exist. It's in many subtle forms, and even one great dance number we had, the Odd Shoe. It's, I had an old pair of shoes. I thought I'm going to go and buy a new pair of shoes. So I left my easel and in the hands of other artists. I'm going to get some new, keep an eye on my stuff. And I go 3 miles, get a brand new pair of shoes, throw the old shoes away down the end of Bond Street, get back to my my easel, and then the old shoes there back on my seat. Where did I just threw these away 3 miles away. And I said, yeah, some fellow was coming by, some tramp was coming by. I said, yeah, them's Tony Troy's shoes. And I grabbed them, I put them on the seat. Did I do right, Tone? I says, personally, if somebody was carrying your shoes now and walking by, I wouldn't know they were your shoes. I wouldn't even bother that your shoes, Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, I just knew they were your shoes. So you think, now, was that, it's just the fact that you've thrown away these old pair of shoes. But what was interesting, the new pair of shoes were hurting as I was coming on the back. I was thinking, boy, I wish I had my old shoes back. And
Boom.
You think, yeah. And that's the basis of the 2 umbrellas being lost, and the fool finding the 2 lost umbrellas against all odds. You think, now there's the basis of a story.
You know what I'm loving about this too, going back to the way beginning, Don, is like maybe the butterfly effect. Like, what if that artist who was leaving didn't leave his easel? He left his easel, right? His easel, his chair. If he didn't leave that stuff there, I mean, your story might be, you wouldn't be here.
No, that's right. Yeah. Everything is a story. Even going to Denmark and finding the way to tell a story, seeing where the magic exists, and then coming back, but the 2 palaces and all that, and also the squat, going from the squat to the palace. You think that's but it was how things were. So that's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to
it. Thanks, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. While we're on it, just so people, for those listening, you can find information on Google. Let me see. I'm trying to think of Tony Troy art.
You do have your Instagram. I saw that. I mean, if you just type in Tony Troy, I mean, there's a plethora of art.
Oh, yeah. Just Google and then Tony Troy art, and you'll find it all there. And you'll find the Flute Player song. You'll find all my art.
I saw there's a music video. You saw that too?
I was watching it earlier today.
Yeah.
Very cool. Who made the music video?
Oh, that was me some time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll post some links to your work.
That'd be
too
good.
On the,
So we'll keep in touch as to what's happening, and then you can let the world know.
Hey, if someone wants a portrait or just wants to see your work, is there a way they can reach out to you and get?
Yeah, just Facebook.
Find you on Facebook.
Yeah, Tony Troy art. Yeah, just Tony Troy on Facebook. Yeah, and I'm there.
Story is very inspiring.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, today, I'm starting off being a 6th grade teacher. I haven't taught those grade levels, and before I owned this preschool, that's no longer open. I was so passionate about teaching and making a positive impact on the kids' lives. And this was before I was a father. So now I have 4 of my own kids. I have a million worries. I got my summer camp. And I was asking myself, like, am I the same teacher I was all those years ago? Can I still make that impact I used to make? And, you know, little by, my students haven't come into the class yet. But I'm remembering who I am, and I'm getting myself pumped, I'm getting myself inspired, and I'm ready to make that impact. And I'm listening to your story, and I'm getting motivated because here you are all these years later, and you're still going for it more than a lot of young people are. And I just think it's very cool, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All
Don,
right.
anything
No.
we're dropping here, man? I know
No,
the Halloween festival's coming up soon.
Yeah, we've got Halloween coming up on October. I was going to say May 4th, but that would be Hamfest. October 4th. Hope to see you there. It's 6 to 10 p.m. Costume contests, lots of vendors. Music by Lady White Rat.
Ow!
Performances by Mary Macabre and Allegory Dance Theater.
And surprises here and there, right?
All over the place.
Wow. So hope to see you guys there. Maybe even Tony will show up. Who knows?
Maybe.
Tony Troy, thank you, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Can they cheer now? Is that okay?
A loud applause, please. Exceptionally loud applause, please.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. Guys, you heard him as loud as you can go. Tony Troy, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for listening to Welcome to the Clubhouse, a production of Art Club Hamilton with your hosts Sam Seitels and Don Swenson.
If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button, give us 5-star ratings, and share it with a friend who'd love to hear it too. It really helps us grow, and not only that, it makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
So fuzzy. Until next time, keep creating, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next episode.